with The Simpsons season 34 on at least on my review series now complete, and waiting now the wait until season 35 or the next season to begin, I have been suggested or requested to make a top 10 list of my favorite episodes of season 34 of the of the season that ended. Well, it ended back in May. Yeah, season 34 ended back in May of this year, May 21st. But still, I mean, that was a month ago. Yeah, that was a month ago since season 34 did end. And apparently season 35 won't begin until September of this year. But while we are on the way of the next season to begin, I think it is a pretty good idea to go through 10 episodes. And of course, there will be some honorable mentions as well. Before we do number 1, of course, I will do honorable mentions. And again, y'all may like these episodes, you might not like these episodes. I mean, it was a hard choice, though. Don't get me wrong, it was a hard choice to choose just 10, because there were several episodes I liked from this season. But I think the choices that I made were pretty good, especially the honorable mentions as well, that we'll be doing before number 1. But let's get started. And the first one, at number 10. At number 10 is the first episode of the season, pretty much. You know, when Homer at the petting zoo and forms a group of hunting, trying to find a missing tortoise, and it ends up being in their house, and again, he wants to be accepted being cool. Homer just wants to be accepted being cool. This was a really good episode, I can just say, especially to start the season. I really did enjoy this one. It was really decent, I can just say. And I just love that Homer just forms a group, and especially suggesting all the ideas on that board as well that they made was just really humorous too. Number 9 is the episode 2 of season 34, and where Marge gets is on this workout bike, right? On this workout bike, and with her trainer, and Homer starts to get angry about Marge's trainer, which that ends up him having a fight with Marge's trainer. But again, a really cool and funny episode as well. It was really funny, especially that fight was pretty funny. Number 8, and that is episode 19 of season 34. Where Lisa and Marge start their own charity to help the homeless with Marge's really cool cleaning clothes technique that she made with the pillowcases and stuff, which is, again, really clever. But again, it was just really good to see Marge and Lisa actually work together on something like this, right? It was really a real great episode. Number 7, episode 9, when Nelson meets Lisa, I think that was the title, where it shows pretty much, that episode where a future tale of Nelson and Lisa falling for each other, and then some implications in here and there that just go back and forth. If you watch the episode, you would definitely know, or know what I'm talking about. But I really liked this episode as well. Another good choice, because it was just a real solid episode. I really can't say much more, especially diving in more in the future with grown up Lisa and the characters as well. number 6, and that is episode 17 of season 34, and the return of Jock. Remember the return of Jock from season 1, which it was so great to see the return of the season 1 character. You know, when Marge was just angry at Homer, was upset at Homer about the bowling ball present, and Jock instructs her, but has an interest in Marge, has developed more of an interest in Marge, and sort of still does to this day, right, as you've seen in the episode, and Homer fighting Jock as well, as he's her teacher, her instructor, and the person she's bowling against as well. But she ends up beating him, and he ends up getting arrested as well. Not because of that, of him being obsessed over Marge, but just some other crimes too. Number 5, Hostile Kirk Place. Episode 16. This was a great episode, just diving pretty much dedicated with Kirk, right? Milhouse's dad, and him just trying to make a point, right? Him just trying to make a point, and again, it was a really decent, solid episode about just trying to protect and so that of their old relatives and their family. Like, it was really a real good one. Episode 4. Episode 10 of season 34. You know, the episode where pretty much it shows pretty much the roadblock reference, right? Pretty much the episode referencing roadblocks, but it's not roadblocks, and it's just glitched like online game that looks like it, you can say, and Bart gets Principal Skinner on doing this with other kids too, that they can actually make real money, and of course they're competitors as well, this other school academy, and Marge and Homer Marge is very happy of actually being able to communicate and talk with Maggie in the game. And that ending as well. The ending was dark as well. I don't know why I found it dark, but very creepy, like I just say. Number 3, episode 21 of season 34, where Krusty has his own school, right? Where he opens up his own school, and Bart attends. And everybody, all the adults, are actually appreciating Krusty of how well this is. And again, a real good to see Krusty actually succeed with this, besides his show. It was really great to see. And again, very funny as well. Number 2. And that's episode 3, Episode 3 of season 34. Lisa the Boy Scout. This was an interesting episode. Like those hackers. Like those, I guess you could say hackers. Those weird people that it turns out, of course, to be a girl and a boy that end up falling in love with each other. But them just threatening different things, right? And fourth wall breaking different things too. And showing funny clips that were never shown in The Simpsons. That were just made up clips that were never shown in The Simpsons. Again, this is just a very funny episode that, again, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed from this season. For sure. Number 2 is episode 6, sorry. Episode 6. And it's the Treehouse of Horror. This season's Treehouse of Horror. And my favorite, as of right now, Treehouse of Horror. Of all the Treehouse of Horrors that do come out by far, this is my favorite. I just love the different stories and the art style. Like that weird creature in that Japanese like art style, and Marge becoming possessed and trying to kill Maggie in this story too. And Maggie just defending herself, like, for real. This episode definitely deserves a lot to be praised as my favorite. And again, I mean, like I said, again, y'all may not, some of these y'all may not like. Again, there could be different people that don't like certain of these episodes, but yeah, I personally enjoyed this one, and it's my personal favorite of the Trails of Horrors right by far. And of course, we're going to be going through some honorable mentions. First of all, honorable mentions. The first honorable mention, before we go to number one, we're obviously going through honorable mentions. At the first honorable mention is the last episode of the season, Homer's adventures through the windshield glass. This one was a really interesting season finale episode, right? Especially with Marge's father. Yeah, Marge's dad. Right? And Homer figuring out the truth with Marge's dad. And, of course, this thing that Marge was kept secret about with Homer after a car crash. And, yeah, that elf-like thing as well was pretty funny. A really solid, episode to end the season, for sure. Episode 13, where we see this story when Ned Flanders falls on hard times, all those weird things that are happening around in his life, and Fat Tony makes him an offer he can't refuse, right? Because Ned goes to work with Fat Tony, and Ned didn't even realize that he was part of a mob gang, right? Or doing bad. Criminals. Till Lisa mentioned it. This one was a real interesting episode for sure. All I can say. Episode 20. The Hungry Caterpillars. AKA the pandemic, whatever, the lockdown episode. Now, a lot of y'all are probably going to wonder something to me. You're probably going to wonder, how come I like this episode when it's based on a lockdown, but on SpongeBob, I hate Quarantine Crab, which is also a lockdown? Well, there's a big difference. This episode, The Hungry Caterpillars, uses something silly. It uses something funny, right? It uses something funny. Caterpillars, right? It just uses something funny, silly. It just takes something silly, like innocent little caterpillars, to use as a plot, right? As the lockdown. But in Quarantine Crab, they're going through a flu, a virus. And that also hits very similarities to today's society that people are still scared about, right? In today's society. See why it's different? See why I don't like the Quarantine Crab episode, but I love this episode? This episode uses caterpillars. Something very funny, right? That's why I like this one. It uses something very funny, like caterpillars, as a pandemic-like issue, where they're having to be locked inside with each other, right? They're quarantined with each other. But Quarantine Crab, on the other hand, has a virus, has the clown flu, and again, a virus in general. Lots of similarities. Which, yeah, the episode, besides going out of that, it does have some very awkward, Principal Skinner moment with everything with Principal Skinner, too. How going to Ned, and yeah, Ned was really interesting in this episode. How he actually steps up and actually just stopped being gullible with Homer in that fight as well. That's, I guess, what lockdown does to you. If you're locked down, if you're locked down somewhere with each other for a long time, then yeah, I guess you would go insane. And Lisa just being getting scared because of looking at all the news or all of the stuff going on about this lockdown. Which, too bad the actual, too bad the actual pandemic, which, yeah, we still going through that, but thankfully I'm not such of a scared nip, so whatever, you can fill in the gap like most people would. People are just scared, right? They're just scared. They can't move on with their life. But yeah, I guess people could relate to Lisa, but it is really good to see that. I guess I don't know what you would put, like that side of Lisa or something. I don't know. Again, and it's funny how Mayor Quimby is just like there's nothing, or it's not an issue until it really is an issue. And I don't know how I would feel about Maggie just eating ranch dressing out of it by itself. Like that's kind of gross, I guess. Right? Like her just drinking it or eating it just out of the, like I don't know what to think about that. And Bart just eating mayonnaise out of its, yeah, I don't know how to think about that either. But again, there's some really good stuff in this episode, and the ending is funny, right? The ending of this episode is funny, where everything seemed to go back to the way it was. After 5 days, which, yeah, going back to that, 5 days, they were in lockdown, and then the whole thing was over. Because all of the caterpillars were in their cocoons. But of course, you always know, caterpillars, when they go into cocoons, they're going to turn into butterflies. And you know what? They thought the crisis was over. Nope, there's white butterflies now that are coming out of the cocoons, and they're biting people. And then yet another lockdown begins. I don't know why, I just find that very funny. A very funny way to end the episode. Like, they thought they were safe. And nope, butterflies that are starting to bite people very badly. And yeah. And then my number one, no more honorable mentions. That was my last honorable mention. But my number one favorite episode of the season is Not It, which is a parody to Pennywise. The horror movie, Stephen King's It, Pennywise. I like this episode. It was a real cool parody to a horror movie, right? It was a real cool parody to actually see. It was a real cool parody. I mean, yeah, it's something also fresh. Something fresh as well, because, most of the Simpson episodes today, they would recycle old plots, right? Like, Lily, the episode with Lily falling in love with Homer is a similarity to how Homer, pretty much recycling the episode where Homer fell in love with Mindy, or Narlene, or Narlene falling in love with Homer, or, recycling, using old plots. Because again, a show that has gone on for this many years is, of course, they're going to recycle old plots, right? They're going to recycle old episodes and making new ones. So, not a surprise, but this one is nothing that we've seen before, right? Not It is a very special, I guess you could say, episode, to me at least. Because it's something we never seen of referencing a horror movie such as this as Pennywise or something, right? Stephen King, like I mentioned, Stephen King's It. Like, that's definitely something for The Simpsons, to actually parody a horror movie like this and actually make it really good. I mean, yeah, there's some creepy moments, of course, because again, it's referencing a horror movie, but it's not very creepy like you would think, like, I guess, an actual horror movie. But no, it actually works. And I like the whole, I guess the plot is kind of a reference to the actual movie. Like, this kid that Barney is playing gets its boat lost in the sewers, lost in the sewer, and Pennywise just completely mauls or eats that kid's arm and drags it down into the sewer. And we have Homer, our little Homer, Marge, comic book guy, Moe, and Carl all going after Pennywise, aka Krusty the Clown, in this, and going and fighting him, even when they're years later too. I don't know why this episode is my favorite of the season, and in general, of course, but it's just something about it. Right? It's just something about it I just find really good. But yeah, those are my personal top 10 favorite episodes of the current season that recently, again, still not that long ago, ended, right? Because again, season 34 still wasn't that long ago since it ended, since it concluded. And again, of course, the Simpsons are renewed to a 35 and 36 season. Remember, it's renewed for 35 and 36. And of course, season 35 is to be expected to be releasing, or to be premiering, in September. At least from what I've seen online, it says that it will be premiering in September and going all the way to May of 2024, at least when it comes to season 35. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, notifications, turn on so anything new. And I'd like to know, what are y'all's favorite episodes in general or in a certain season? Let me know what you think. Get to the next one.